In this episode of Brainpower, I'm going to take a look at some sneak peeks of Adobe Captivate and Gen AI. All right, let's go ahead and let's jump in. Hello, everyone. It's Josh. I hope you're doing well. Well, I didn't expect to do this episode today, but I felt compelled to share with you some of the things that I saw at the Adobe Learning Summit. I had a great time out in Las Vegas this week. It was an excellent conference. The opening keynote was from Sal Khan, and he gave an excellent overview of his career and the origins of Khan Academy and some insight into the creation of the Socratic chatbot that they have, Conmingo, which is pretty cool. So that was a really excellent experience. But part of the show was Adobe giving sneak peeks yesterday. And I managed to go ahead and take a few pictures and on the flight back think about how all this may come together in the future. So apologies ahead of time because some of these camera shots I was a little bit off as far as like the angle, but I'll explain what's happening inside each shot or whatever. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about, which believe it or not has an angle into Gen AI, is the announcement of a web version of the Adobe Captivate authoring environment. Wow. Pretty cool. And the fascinating thing to think about is, over the years, thinking about how some desktop-based software is making this migration over to the web. I mean, we've seen Photoshop for the web, and we've seen other applications with web versions. Probably the biggest one that comes to mind is Microsoft Office 365 with the ability to use PowerPoint and Word within the web environment, right? So, where is all of that going? Well, before I get into like the connection with Gen AI, let's go ahead and take a look at what this web interface looks like. And so, I this is Captivate running in the web, and it's one of the opening screens here. And the software, it's very simple, and it looks just like the desktop-based application. And of course, you go in. There's opening screen. You can pick whether you want to create a new course, edit an existing course, that kind of thing. And here's a course inside the web interface. And here's the editing environment. Again, I know it's a little difficult to see, but there's slides over on the left-hand side. There's the editing area, and then there's the details or the panel over on the right-hand side, allowing you to make individual edits to the objects that you have selected, right? So, but all this is on the web. And so now I'm going to hold on this slide for a second because there's some information about specific functionality on the web version of Adobe Captivate. And I broke the text out, make it a little bit easier to read. So what they're saying here is that one, you get a web interface. We got it. There's no installation of software. That got an applause for anyone that has to deal with, that relationship that you have with IT, right? That love-hate relationship and trying to get the latest and greatest or a patch or anything installed, and it has to go through security and all that. And then you finally get that latest version of Captivate that you so desperately need, whether it be an update to a bug or a fix to a bug or an update to the software. So no installations, right? It's constantly updated. Autosave. If you work with Microsoft 365, you probably have experienced this where you're working with a document in Word or you're working with PowerPoint. As soon as you make an edit, boom, it's saving up to OneDrive. Storage, well, it's on the web, so you are going to require a storage from Adobe to store your work. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to show up, but there will be a storage component. And finally, auto updates to the software. Of course, it's web-based software. They're going to go ahead and push out updates all the time. And of course, you will see those updates, right? Pretty cool. So I want to just take a moment and get into where I believe this web interface is going. And I brought up a slide that I use in other presentations for this prompt evolution pathway. You're probably wondering, well, what what does it have to do with Adobe Captivate? Well, first, you'll see here in a moment that I'm going to show you the Gen AI implementation inside the Captivate environment. You use prompts in there, or eventually you use prompts depending upon the text or images or even avatar that you're trying to create. And so you'll notice that, over here on the left hand side is that you start with a prompt and the prompt evolves and you put into a prompt library, and eventually there's a workflow library with a whole bunch of different prompts inside there. And then you get to automations and you eventually have agents or autonomous agents doing things for you, right? So how does this fit in with the web? Well, this is where I think things are going to evolve to. So let me go to the next slide here. There we go. So where I think things are headed is that we will have agents. Again, if you're not clear as to what an agent is, let me just go back for a second. Let's first start with the prompt over here on the left hand side. So the prompt is that connection that you have to some type of AI model, whether it be a large language model or an image generation model like Dolly or Midjourney, audio, video. Typically, you're prompting. Now, with other forms of media, we're now starting to see like video to video or image to video. So there's other inputs into that. Let's just stick with a text prompt. So there's a maturation with a text prompt. Again, this is the interface into uh, a model, a generative AI model through natural language processing. And as it matures, let's say that we have a prompt that just knocks out a really, really good video script. And we want to automate that process. Well, through using a tool like Microsoft AutoGen, or there's other tools that are out there that can create agents or co-pilots, we begin to see automations. Now, how easy is it to build an automation with a desktop piece of software? Well, I mean, we're not there quite yet in regards to AI vision looking at a user interface and doing tasks automatically. It may be out there, but it's definitely not at scale. Not yet. So, if our applications sit on the web, we can use an agent and have it make a call, do things for us, create things for us, evaluate for us. And in this case, where I see things headed is that an agent that you set up is eventually going to go ahead and talk to the web version of Adobe Captivate. And Captivate is going to be more of a content creation engine that will then go ahead and create a course. You may have to be all right with not using a timeline or a slide interface anymore, and these things being automatically generated. Now, obviously, you're going to have human in the loop somewhere in there to evaluate the content being created. But eventually, there may even be another agent that will evaluate that course for you, right? So it's kind of fascinating to look and see where the possibilities are, where this may go. Uh, but again, I don't know how or when this shows up, but it seems like the foundations are being built. And as this technology progresses, just keep your eye on the horizon, and where agents and where web-based applications and how those automations come together, because I think this is where we're headed. All right. Well, in addition to talking about, Adobe Captivate, there are other learning tools within Adobe's ecosystem. There was a demonstration of obviously Captivate and the AI features in there, which I'll get to in a moment. There was generative AI inside of Adobe Connect. And then there was also generative AI inside of Adobe Learning Manager. And I'll hit all those. So obviously the implementation of generative AI within these tools is full steam ahead. Adobe's engineers are on it, and they're trying to figure out the best way to uh, put these productivity based features inside the application. In regards to Adobe Learning Manager, you're going to see here in a moment, um, the features are pretty sophisticated when it comes to talent management and courses that are served up or learning paths that are created. Well, let's just jump in and take a look at Captivate with Gen AI. Now, I have seen demonstrations of this functionality. If we go back to last year at Adobe Learning Summit, they demonstrated the automation or creation of a course with Gen AI. And I was wondering, when is this going to show up? Well, I think they're extremely close. And again, a lot of it is risk mitigation and trying to understand the nuances of leveraging a third party large language model in the creation of content, and that seamless interaction within the authoring environment, right? So, uh, here's the Adobe Captivate AI Assistant. Again, apologies on the angle of the slide. And I know it's somewhat difficult to read, but I'll just generalize here for you. So, what you would do is you would go in and you would begin the process of starting a new course using the AI assistant. And you would go in, you could, type in what the course information is about. In this slide right here, it shows a document being uploaded. And you probably have seen this with ChatGPT or other large language models, the ability to upload a document that would then influence the probability of certain words being used in the result coming back from the model, right? Well, we got it right here in Captivate. And so you upload this document, and the document itself is going to be chunked and then broken apart into slides. And all this is going to be processed with a large language model. Adobe did use the word agent, but that term agent is being used all over the place for automation. Like, I think there's like different levels of agents or automations and semi autonomous automations when you have human in the loop, or fully autonomous functions where you have human at the helm. Like, there's different striations there in regards to like the command and control or automations that are happening in the background. So when you hear the word agentic or agent, make sure you're clear as to what does that mean. You know, some people even call a GPT an agent, right? And it's, I think of it more of an automation than anything. But anyways, let's keep going. So And then the last is the guardrails. So just if you can't read that slide, I broke it down here for you. So you upload a document, or you could use domain-based information coming from the model, but it's going to break it up into logical chunks that will then eventually create slides. It's leveraging a large language model in the background. We don't know which one. And this is another point I want to make real quick. I believe that vendors like Adobe, like Articulate, if they use AI in any generation of content within your course, they need to be transparent on which specific model they're using. Like, it shouldn't be a secret. Is it GPT-4, 4.0? What are you using? Because those models change over time, right? The training behind those models evolves. The functionality of those models evolve. So I'm very unclear. I don't know what they're using. I'm assuming some flavor of GPT-4 in the background. They did mention agentic. Don't need to get into it again. And the guardrails. Yeah. Now, what's interesting about the guardrails, when you are leveraging a large language model, there are numerous ways that vendors like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic put protections in so that certain types of nefarious returns or prompts cannot be processed. But one thing that's interesting about these vendors, including Microsoft, using large language models in the background, is you don't know what other system prompts are being used. And so a system prompt is a prompt that you don't see. It's kind of sitting in the background that any application can use in addition to the prompt that you're sending. It could be used as a guardrail. It could be used to make the copy coming back more creative, kind of like Anthropic Claude Sonnet 3.5. I believe that's another item that vendors should reveal is there any additional system prompting that's going on in the background that's adjusting the results coming back? Because if there is, you may want to just go into ChatGPT or Google Gemini, Claude, and do some work there that may give you better results. Now, obviously, it's a more manual process than slides automatically being created. Hey, Philip, glad you're here. But it's another thing that needs to be transparent. All right, well, let's continue. So you upload the document, and then you see that chunking going on. You can rearrange your topics. So you can click and drag those around. You can rename them. Eventually, the slides are created. They had a Halloween theme, very appropriate for October. And I know you can't see it, but if you look over in the right-hand side, like right over here, it says generation prompt. So you can select an image and reprompt in Adobe for using Adobe Firefly in the background to get a new image. You can select text blocks in here, reprompt, or use content refinement buttons like rephrase and itemize. Itemize is pretty awesome. Like if you have a large block of text, it will go in and condense it down into bullet points. And another thing that's fascinating is if you have used Adobe Express and Firefly inside that environment, like there's all kinds of buttons, and it's not so much prompting, but giving you the ability to go in and quickly make a change or an edit to some content, leveraging an icon or a button. And for those of you that are on OpenAI, either a Plus account or Teams account or Enterprise, they just released, and I just saw it this morning, what's called Canvas. And Canvas allows you to get a result. It opens that result up in a canvas, and you can highlight certain sections of a paragraph. And there are sliders in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you want to move a slider and change the text so that it can be read by a fifth grader, you move the slider down. If you want the text to reflect PhD level verbiage, you can move the slider up. So it's fascinating to see these workflows modified where you're not prompting as much. But believe it or not, in the background, there is a prompt. There is a, whether it be a button or a slider or anything that, removes the need to type something in from a prompt standpoint. In the background, there are still words being used to communicate with the model. Make sure you keep that in mind. All right, let's continue. What else do we have in here? So, oh yeah, avatars. One of the cool parts of the demo was the creation of a video-based avatar that leveraged the notes section of the slide. Because now, and I don't have this in here, but one of the other things that Adobe demoed was the ability to import a PowerPoint, and not just as an image, but as a fully editable slide, graphics, text, the whole thing. It's going to be huge for them. Well, here we have an avatar. And so, it's going to leverage the text within notes, use it as a script. You can go in and you can pick a voice, uh, probably using 11 Labs here in the background. Just some of the voices sounded familiar. I know this is a really bad photo, but this is a voice interface, and you can pick a voice for this avatar. And then you can move and resize the avatar, crop it, whatever you want to do, and it'll play back. All right, so that is in a nutshell what's happening with Gen AI and Adobe Captivate. Again, you can think of it as an automation where it's going to take your content, generate a course, and you go in and you can do very tactical edits within that course and speed things along. Very cool. But they weren't done. There's other products that were mentioned and Gen AI functionality, and I'm just going to touch upon that briefly. One product I have used for quite some time is Adobe Connect. As a matter of fact, I used to use it when it was Macromedia Breeze, and was just reminiscing with some of the Adobe folks about back in the day attempting to do live online courses back in like 2009-ish, 2010. Um, Actually, I think it was 2012, not that far back, 2012. We attempted to do live online courses, and honestly, the bandwidth wasn't there. When you're trying to do screen sharing and you got, 30 or 40 people, uh, it sucked up a lot of bandwidth and it just wasn't ready for prime time. Fast forward and, virtual environments is what saved our bacon during COVID, right? So it's kind of fascinating to see the maturation of this tool. And so, again, I know it's difficult to see, but the summary here is that you now can go in and take a video transcript of a recording of one of your Captivate sessions, and then it will create a blog post for you from the transcript. Now, there's other pieces of software that can do this. What first came to mind when I was watching this was castmagic.io. And Cast Magic does something similar to where it'll take your MP4 or MP3 and it will go ahead and it'll transcribe that, right? So kind of fascinating to see this type of functionality kind of work its way into a platform like Adobe Connect. And you see transcriptions being used in Microsoft Teams. Actually, Microsoft is having a little bit more going on in regards to creating action items, or also interfacing in with project management tools to not only just say, here's the transcript, but using AI to do more things with it. But again, pretty cool to see that type of functionality in there for creating this blog post. All right. And you can go in, and after the blog post is created, you can modify it. Again, yet another interface where upon generation of content via AI, we have the ability to make edits. And over here on the right-hand side, it says, do you want to change the tone of the blog post from formal to casual? How long do you want to make the blog post? Short, medium, or long? And again, this is all based upon the transcript from the Adobe Connect session. Very cool. They also showed Adobe Learning Manager. So for those of you that are, interested in learning experience platforms or LMSs, things are moving along quite fast in that area, along the lines of custom learning paths and also skill taxonomies. And so let's take a quick look at what AI is going to be doing inside of Adobe Learning Manager. And again, just for context, keep in mind that everything I'm showing you here today is not out in the wild just yet, right? Again, these are sneak peeks. These are glimpses of the future. This is what the engineers are working on at Adobe. And so it's just not out there just yet. Um, so, some low-hanging fruit is going in and setting up assessments and the automation of setting up assessments. Pretty cool. They also had this really neat function, the ability to incorporate third-party or external applications within the learning management environment. Pretty wild. And they gave a demonstration of continuing education credits, which, if you think about it, there's a lot of organizations when it comes to certification or boards or anything like that. And the ability to have a connection between content on a system like Adobe Learning Manager and an external certification group or organization and have them talking to each other. That's pretty cool. But this ability to go in and add your own applications or your own functionality within Adobe Learning Manager opens up just a world of possibility. And so they went ahead and demonstrated this continuing education credit workflow, so to speak, which was pretty fascinating. Let's talk about skills. Skills and where we're at with that is pretty interesting, because anybody that has some type of human capital management system, Workday, Oracle, SAP, LMS, LXP vendors, like everybody is on the skill train right now. So how is Adobe handling skills? And I was really interested to hear this one, because I personally believe that skills should be like done with blockchain and also validated with an independent third party, right? Because those skills evolve and change, and there's redefinitions and everything like that. So, but they should go along with you, regardless of where you're working. Like those skills should go with you. So it should be interesting to see how this plays out. Anyways, back to Adobe. So Adobe, what they're doing is they're going in and allowing the import of skill assessments or skill individuals that have skills identified into the system. Like you can just go ahead and import skill taxonomy in there, and then it becomes part of Adobe Learning Manager, which is pretty cool. Again, apologies on the blurry slide. You can have auto tagging of content as far as skills. I've seen third-party vendors try to build a whole company on this functionality. So there's definitely collision happening in the marketplace. You go to any show and you hit the expo floor, and you can see just across the spectrum of vendors that are there that there's so many feature sets that are either similar or the same, and how some of these over time find their way into many of the systems that you use. Again, here is a slide showing the breakdown of skills and how they can be tagged, right? Pretty cool. And here's some upcoming functions within Adobe Learning Manager. As I mentioned, automated skill tagging, automatic learning path creation. We're getting now into the personalization of the experience for your associates. Learner takes all courses or assessments based on skills. I mentioned skill assessment earlier. There's also going to be a chatbot inside Adobe Learning Manager. This assistant is going to leverage natural language. It can reference resources within your ecosystem and the creation of smart learning paths. And so now we're starting to see like the foundations of an agent or a chatbot being able to partner with the user or associate within Adobe Learning Manager to get that personalized experience based upon knowledge or skill gaps that they have. Again, this is all forward looking. I don't know when this shows up. And here's the assistant over here on the side. Okay, so that is the overview. Probably went a little bit longer than I expected, but I wanted to just give you that line of sight. And I think for myself, probably one of the more fascinating things to keep an eye on is that and I'm just clicking back through the slides so I can go back and get over here like this. This is what fascinates me, is seeing the migration of tools from the desktop over to the web. And I believe that you're going to see this mad rush to get away from the desktop. Again, that's going to take quite some time. But again, the reason why is many of these applications are going to be headless, to where you can go in and there's no UX or UI, and it's an engine that agents will use to go in and create a video or create an e-learning course, make a song, whatever. Make your next vacation plans. Not only that, but book everything. Oh boy, wouldn't that be great? So with that, hopefully you enjoyed that quick overview. Again, it's kind of giving you a little sneak peek as far as what's coming from Adobe. And I just want to thank you for spending some time with me. And I will see you in the next one. Take care.